My wife publicly thanked another man at her birthday party that I paid for. I confronted her after that, and she said it was nothing and I was acting insecure. 3 days later, I received pictures of my wife and that same man at a beach resort from an anonymous person. What happened next was rather unbelievable. I will tell you everything. First, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Richard Gilliland from Newcastle, Pennsylvania. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. I used to think that love meant showing up. Quietly, consistently. I was the kind of man who didn't need grand gestures in return, just recognition. Not even from the world, just from her. My wife, Dana. She used to say she loved how grounded I was, how I didn't need the spotlight, how I made her feel safe. So when her 35th birthday rolled around, I wanted to give her more than just safety. I wanted to give her the kind of night she'd talk about for years. The kind that would show, not just tell, that I saw her, heard her, valued her. I didn't skimp. I booked the rooftop venue she'd mentioned months ago in passing. Custom floral centerpieces, a private chef, live acoustic music. All on me. I even surprised her with a slideshow of photos from every year we'd been together, timed perfectly to her favorite song. I thought that was the kind of thing people remembered. I thought that's what husbands did. The party glowed with golden fairy lights and the clinking of champagne glasses. Friends, co-workers, her yoga group, even her distant cousin from out of state, everyone showed up. She looked stunning in that red-wrapped dress she ordered the week before, hair pinned up, laughing easily. She made her rounds like a socialite, all elegance and poise. And I stood back, like always, content just to see her shine. People kept patting me on the back saying, "Man, you did good." And I'd nod, smile, say, anything for her. Because that's what I believed, back then. Then came the moment for speeches. I didn't expect one from her, but she tapped her glass with a spoon and all eyes turned to her. She smiled, that radiant host smile she had, and said, "I just want to thank a few people who really helped me through this past year." My chest swelled a little. I thought, maybe she'll say my name. Maybe just a small nod for everything I did behind the scenes. But then she said it. "Marcus." She looked right at him. "You've been my rock this year. I don't know where I'd be without you." There was a brief pause, like the universe hiccuped. My heart dropped, and I swear I didn't even hear the rest of her words. People clapped. Someone whistled. Marcus, standing by the bar, raised his glass with a smirk like he was waiting for it. I stood there, frozen, gripping my drink so tight I thought the glass might shatter. I looked around, half expecting someone to ask, "Wait, what about her husband?" But no one did, because they didn't know. No one knew I'd been the one to foot every bill. No one knew the months of planning, the stress, the rearranged work shifts. In that moment, I felt like a ghost at my own event. After everyone left, I didn't explode. I didn't even bring it up right away. I helped clean up, gathered her things, drove her home. She chatted like nothing happened. I just listened, nodding along, my jaw tight. Once we got inside, I finally asked, "Why did you thank Marcus?" She blinked, as if surprised by the question. "He helped me with my job transition," she said. "You know that. You're reading too much into it." Her voice was casual, dismissive even, like I'd just accused her of misplacing the car keys. That night, I lay awake beside her while she slept, staring at the ceiling fan spinning like a slow, mocking clock. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was just confused. Disappointed. Something about the way she said it, how easily she brushed it off, made me feel like I'd missed something deeper. I replayed the moment in my head over and over, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But I couldn't, because that speech, that public display, felt intentional. Not just in who she thanked, but in who she didn't. 3 days later, the truth would find me anyway. But even then, in the silence of our bedroom, I had already started to grieve. Not for my marriage, not yet, but for the version of me that still believed this was love. It stayed with me like a splinter beneath the skin, small, almost invisible, but aching every time I thought I'd moved past it. Her words from that night looped in my head on repeat. You worry too much. I started to second-guess myself. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I was making something out of nothing. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the look on her face when she said Marcus's name. Not casual, not friendly, familiar, intimate, and not once, not once. Did she even glance in my direction as she said it? That kind of omission wasn't random. That kind of erasure was practiced. The next morning, I made coffee like I always did. Poured her a cup with oat milk the way she liked it. She took it, mumbled a thank you, kissed my cheek, and started scrolling through her phone. I watched her from across the kitchen island. She looked so normal, so ordinary, like the night before hadn't happened. I tried to match that energy, to act like everything was fine, but the quiet between us started feeling heavier with every passing hour. And that weight, it wasn't just disappointment. It was suspicion, a dull throb of realization forming into something sharper. 2 days later, we were in bed, backs turned to each other. She was texting someone, her screen tilted just slightly away. That's when I asked again, this time more directly. Is there something going on with Marcus? She sighed, didn't even look up. Jesus, again? He's a friend. That's all. Her tone wasn't defensive, it was bored. As if the idea of Marcus being more than a friend was laughable. And yet, the way she avoided eye contact told me everything I needed to know. That was the thing about lies. They didn't need to be loud to be heard. Silence often screamed louder. I kept my calm, but inside, something was starting to shift. I became more observant. Not obsessive, not paranoid, attentive. I noticed how often she smiled at texts but locked her phone when I entered the room. How she went out twice that week without really saying where. Just errands, she'd say. I didn't push back. I just took mental notes. I'd always trusted her. Maybe that was my first mistake, assuming loyalty was mutual just because I gave it freely. I didn't want to believe it yet, but a man can feel when he's been replaced. There's a hollowness that settles in the space between you, even when she's lying right beside you. And then came the moment that solidified everything. The one that would pull the thread until the whole thing unraveled. I came home early from work. A meeting got canceled, and I thought, maybe we could have lunch together. She wasn't in the house, but her laptop was open on the kitchen counter. I didn't mean to snoop. Truly, I didn't. But a notification popped up from her calendar. Dinner with M, 6 p.m. at Fieldstone Grill. I stood there, staring at it like it was a foreign language. M. Marcus. Who else would it be? I felt that same heat rise in my chest, the kind that flushes your skin and makes your ears ring. I didn't confront her that night. Not yet. Because something in me needed confirmation. Proof. I didn't want to fight over maybes. I wanted the truth. The next morning, as I was leaving for work, she kissed me lightly and said, "Don't wait up tonight. I'm having dinner with some coworkers." My smile tightened, but I said nothing. I just nodded and walked out. That was the moment I emotionally left the marriage, even if the paperwork hadn't caught up yet. Because love doesn't lie to your face with that kind of ease. Love doesn't let another man sit where a husband belongs and pretend it's harmless. I spent that night staring at the ceiling again, just like I had after the party. Only this time, I wasn't confused. I was certain. Something inside me had closed. Not with a slam, but a click, like a lock sliding into place. I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. I didn't have the evidence yet, but I had the gut feeling. And if there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that the gut rarely lies. So when the envelope showed up the next morning, unmarked, left at the doorstep, I wasn't even surprised. A part of me had already been waiting for it. Inside were 5 glossy photos, each one louder than any confession she could have made. And just like that, I had my answer. The envelope didn't have a return address. Just my name, Ryan, written in rushed, uneven handwriting across the front. I found it on the doorstep early Friday morning, half tucked under the welcome mat like someone had tried to hide it but didn't have the nerve to knock. I remember staring at it for a long time before picking it up. My first thought was that it was junk, maybe another flyer. But something about the weight of it made me pause. Paper, sure, but not thin, not flimsy, like photographs. And deep down, I already knew whatever was inside wasn't going to be good. I waited until I got back inside, coffee untouched on the counter, phone still charging. I peeled the flap open slowly, like whatever was inside might explode. There were 5 pictures. High resolution. Color. The kind you get when someone wants you to see every single detail. The first one was her, Dana, on a lounge chair, cocktail in hand, sunglasses pushed up in her hair. Smiling. Relaxed. The kind of expression she hadn't worn around me in months. The second was Marcus beside her, shirtless, grinning at the camera. His hand rested casually on her bare thigh. Intimate. Too intimate for just a friend. The third was the two of them walking along the shoreline, barefoot, holding hands. The kind of scene you'd find on a resort brochure, except it wasn't staged. It was real, candid. He looked at her the way I used to, and she looked back at him like he was the only man on earth. The fourth was worse. They were kissing. Not some drunk peck or half-hearted mistake. It was long, slow, deliberate. Her hand cupped the back of his neck. His fingers were tangled in her hair. It was the kind of kiss you give someone when you're sure there won't be consequences. Or when you've already decided the consequences don't matter. The fifth photo was the final nail. The two of them wrapped in white resort robes, standing on a balcony, champagne in hand. Her head was leaning on his shoulder. He was whispering something into her ear. And she was laughing. A deep, unguarded laugh. The kind I hadn't heard in our house in over a year. I stood there at the kitchen counter, fingers gripping the edges of the prints, hands trembling. Not with rage, with clarity. That was the moment everything sharpened into focus. All the doubts, the gut feelings, the emotional distance, it wasn't in my head. It was right there. Tangible. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was betrayed. I didn't call her. I didn't scream or demand answers. I scanned the photos, attached them to an email, and added one PDF. The divorce papers I'd had prepared 6 months earlier, back when I first suspected things weren't right. I never thought I'd use them. Honestly, I hoped I wouldn't. But something in me had known, even then, that I needed a contingency plan. In the body of the email, I typed 2 words. We're done. That was it. No threats. No explanations. Just the truth. She didn't respond for hours. When she finally did, it wasn't a call. It was a string of desperate texts. Ryan, please. Where did those come from? Can we talk? It's not what it looks like. Please don't do this. But she never denied it. Not once. That told me everything I needed to know. If someone sends your husband proof that you've been kissing another man on a beach, and your first instinct isn't to say it's a lie, it's because it isn't one. Later that night, she came home. Quietly. No dramatic entrance. No tears. Just a cautious look in her eyes like she wasn't sure which version of me she was about to face. I was sitting on the couch. Our son, Caleb, was asleep in his room. She sat across from me, hands folded in her lap like she was on trial. And in a way, she was. I didn't plan for it to happen, she said softly. I didn't reply. I just stared. It just happened. I was in a bad place. We both were. Marcus was there, and I didn't know how to stop it once it started. You didn't know how to start it, I said, finally breaking my silence. My voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. You knew how to lie about it. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply. It was a mistake. No. Leaving your husband emotionally for another man. Taking a beach trip while pretending you were somewhere else. Thanking him at your birthday party while erasing me entirely. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. She started to cry then. But even that felt too late. Like everything else, it came after the damage was done. I still love you, she whispered. I stood up, walked past her, and said without turning around, I stopped loving you the moment I saw how happy you looked with him. She didn't leave that night. She curled up on the edge of our bed, back to me, facing the wall. I could hear her crying, soft at first, then deep, full-bodied sobs like someone mourning a death. And maybe she was. Maybe she realized too late that she'd killed something. But I didn't comfort her. I didn't reach over, pull her close, or whisper that we'd be okay. Because we wouldn't. I lay there on my side of the bed, staring at the ceiling again, numb in a way that no amount of painkillers could dull. There's a kind of heartbreak that doesn't scream. It just folds in on itself, quietly dismantling everything you thought was real. I loved her once. God, I loved her so deeply I would have taken a bullet for her. But what she did felt worse than a wound. It was a slow, precise assassination of trust. In the morning, she made coffee. Like nothing had changed. Like we were still us. She poured mine and slid the mug across the counter, eyes flicking to me with a fragile sort of hope. I didn't touch it. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in years, I saw her not as my wife, but as a woman who had deliberately unraveled everything we'd built. That morning, Caleb came downstairs still groggy from sleep. He mumbled a morning and went to the fridge for orange juice. Dana tried to smile at him, wiping at her eyes quickly. "Hey, baby," she said, her voice cracked. He looked at her, confused, then looked at me. "Why's Mom crying?" I crouched down beside him, putting a hand on his shoulder. "Buddy, grown-ups make mistakes sometimes. But we're gonna be okay. I promise." He nodded, and then, unexpectedly, wrapped his arms around my neck. Just held on, long and tight, like he knew I needed it even more than he did. I caught Dana watching us. Her bottom lip trembled. She looked like she was about to say something, but I shook my head, subtly. Not in front of him. Not now. Later that evening, she tried to explain everything again. Said it started as a friendship. That Marcus got her in ways she felt I didn't. That he listened. That he saw her. It was like watching someone give a speech they'd practiced in the mirror a dozen times. But here's the thing. No matter how well rehearsed the lines, the truth has a way of bleeding through. And the truth was, she didn't come to me when she felt unseen. She didn't fight for us. She drifted, and when someone else extended a hand, she took it. That's not an accident. That's abandonment in disguise. "I want to fix this," she said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away gently, shaking my head. "You want to fix your guilt," I said. "Not us." She flinched. "That's not true." "Then why didn't you tell me the truth before someone else did? Why did it take photos for you to admit anything?" Her eyes brimmed again. "Because I didn't want to lose you." "You already did," I said. That night was the first time I slept in the guest room. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I needed distance from the bed we once made love in, from the scent of her lotion on the pillows, from the life we once shared. She cried herself to sleep, I'm sure. But I didn't go to her. Not because I was cruel, but because I finally understood the difference between love and enabling. The next morning, she packed a small bag and left for her sister's house. Said she needed time to think. I didn't argue. I just nodded. We had nothing left to discuss. Later that week, I met with the lawyer to finalize the filing. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want alimony. I just wanted peace. I wanted my dignity back. And then came the custody conversation. Dana called, her voice tight. "We need to talk about Caleb. I want shared custody." I stayed quiet for a moment. "We can talk about it, but I'm going to ask him what he wants." "He's 11, she snapped. "He doesn't know what's best for him." "No," I said. "But he knows who made him feel safe when everything fell apart." She exhaled sharply. "So that's how it's going to be?" "No, that's how you made it." That night, Caleb and I sat on the porch. I didn't sugarcoat anything, but I didn't weaponize the truth either. I just asked him plainly, "Do you want to stay with me or go with Mom if we split time?" He didn't hesitate. "You, Dad." I asked why. "Because you don't lie." And just like that, I knew I was doing the right thing. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but out of love for my son and finally for myself. When the custody hearing came, Dana looked composed, hair done, makeup clean, expression neutral like she was on her way to a job interview, not fighting to reclaim the child she once treated like a background character in her own personal drama. I didn't dress to impress. I wore a plain button-down and slacks. No tie, no flourish, just honesty. That was my approach to the whole thing. No theatrics, just facts. The judge asked standard questions. Dana's lawyer emphasized her role as a mother, her bond with Caleb, her contributions over the years. My lawyer, a soft-spoken woman with steel in her voice, simply laid out a timeline. The emotional withdrawal, the affair, the vacation while lying to her family, the abandonment after the fallout. And finally, the one thing that couldn't be refuted, Caleb's own words. They brought him in, which I hadn't expected. It wasn't supposed to happen, but the judge insisted on hearing from him directly. My chest tightened when I saw my son step into that courtroom. Small, nervous, his eyes darting between me and Dana. He looked like he wanted to disappear. I hated that he had to be there, hated that we had dragged him into our mess. But when the judge asked him who he felt most comfortable living with, he looked right at me and said, "My dad." Dana's jaw clenched. Her lawyer whispered something to her, but she didn't respond. She just stared straight ahead. I didn't gloat. I didn't even look at her. I looked at Caleb. His eyes were wet, his lip trembling, but he stood firm. That boy had been through enough. I wasn't going to let anyone, even her, drag him through more just to soothe their own ego. Afterward, we walked out in silence. Dana caught up with me in the parking lot, pulling at my arm. "You turned him against me," she hissed. I shook my head. "No, you did that when you made him feel like a prop. He's not dumb, Dana. He watched it all happen." Her eyes filled again, and I almost felt something, grief, maybe, pity. But then she said, "I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me." That's when I laughed. Not loud, not mocking, just that stunned, hollow kind of laugh you let out when someone says something so far removed from reality, it feels like satire. "You gave me everything? Dana, I paid for your birthday party while you were sleeping with another man. I raised our son while you chased validation from someone who barely knew your middle name. I showed up every damn day, even when you emotionally disappeared. So no, you didn't give me everything. You took." She stared at me, eyes narrowing. "You're not perfect, Ryan. Don't act like you are." "I'm not," I said, "but I'm honest. And I'm done apologizing for not being enough for someone who never figured out what she wanted." She didn't say another word, just turned and walked to her car. I watched her go, wondering if she realized, finally, how much she'd burned. Not just her marriage, but the version of herself that once meant something to me. Over the next few weeks, the paperwork was finalized. Caleb and I stayed in the house. I painted the walls, rearranged the furniture. Small things, but meaningful. I needed the space to feel different, to feel like mine. Ours. Dana texted sometimes, neutral things about school supplies or birthdays, but nothing more. I didn't block her. But I didn't open the door either. One night, as I was folding laundry, Caleb came into the room. He hesitated at the doorway, chewing his lip. "Dad," he said. "Yeah, buddy. Do you think Mom's gonna be okay?" I paused, setting down the towel in my hands. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But that's not something we can fix. She has to figure that out on her own." He nodded. "I just don't want her to be sad." "I know," I said, pulling him into a hug. "That makes you a good person. But it's okay to love someone and still need space from them." He leaned into me, small and warm and strong all at once. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just rebuilding my life. I was shaping his. And if I wanted him to grow up with a healthy sense of self-worth, I had to model it. I had to show him what it looked like to walk away from disrespect, to choose peace over chaos, to love with boundaries, not blind sacrifice. That weekend, I took him camping. Just the two of us. We sat by the fire, roasted marshmallows, and talked about everything but the divorce. It felt good, normal even, like life had finally taken a breath after holding it for too long. I wasn't healed. Not completely, but I was healing, and that was enough. The house felt different now. Not quieter, lighter, like it had exhaled with me. I had swapped out the framed beach photos in the hallway for pictures of Caleb and me hiking, cooking, and building Legos on rainy Saturdays. The space was still the same square footage, still the same worn hardwood floors and drafty windows, but it was ours now. No more ghost of a marriage hanging in the corners. No more pretending everything was fine just to keep up appearances. I didn't play sad music or drown myself in whiskey like some movie cliché. I made scrambled eggs in the morning. I drove Caleb to school. I ran errands. I took deep breaths. That was the healing. The boring, mundane, beautiful rhythm of starting over. Dana still texted sometimes. Brief, surface-level messages. Updates on Caleb's soccer schedule or a question about his allergy meds. The tone was formal, stripped of the warmth we used to share. Once, she slipped and sent, "I miss you." Just those 3 words. No follow-up. I stared at them on my screen for a while before deleting the message without responding. Because the truth was, I didn't miss her. I missed who I thought she was. And once I finally stopped confusing the two, it became easier to let go. There was a Sunday afternoon in late April when she came to pick up Caleb for a lunch visit. He ran out to her car, excited, already rambling about a video game he wanted to show her. She waited on the porch a few seconds before stepping forward. Her eyes lingered on me longer than they should have. "You look good," she said, voice low. "Thanks," I replied simply. She hesitated. "Are you seeing anyone?" "No," I said. And then, "Not yet." She nodded slowly, like she'd expected that answer and hated it all the same. "I think about us sometimes." I didn't flinch. "I don't." Her breath caught for half a second, and I saw it in her eyes, that split-second flicker of regret. Not just for losing me, for realizing that the door she left open no longer existed. She could knock all she wanted, but I'd already built a new wall in its place. "You know," she said quietly, "I really did love you." "I know," I said. "But love without respect isn't love. It's possession." She blinked, stunned, then nodded again, more to herself than to me. She walked back to the car without another word. I watched her drive off, not with bitterness, but with a strange kind of peace. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't need her to hurt the way I had. I just needed her to stay gone. That night, I sat on the porch alone. Caleb was asleep, the air was crisp, and the sky was smeared with stars. I thought about everything we'd been through, what I lost, what I kept, what I rebuilt from the rubble. People talk about divorce like it's a failure, but I didn't see it that way anymore. Staying in a hollow marriage just to keep a facade alive, that would have been failure. Leaving was growth. Leaving was love, for myself, for my son, for the version of me I still wanted to become. I remembered the man who stood at that rooftop birthday party, watching his wife toast another man. I remembered the ache in his chest, the way he forced a smile, the way he stayed quiet. I wasn't him anymore. That man was gone. In his place was someone stronger, wiser, harder, maybe, but not bitter. I'd set boundaries now, not just with Dana, but with life. With anything or anyone that made me feel like I was asking for too much just by wanting to be seen. I knew there would come a day when I'd fall in love again. I wasn't chasing it, but I wasn't afraid of it either. And when it came, it would be on my terms, with honesty, with mutual respect, and with someone who saw my worth before I had to prove it. Until then, I had my son. I had my peace. I had my next chapter. And she wasn't in it. If you've ever had to walk away from someone who only valued you once you were gone, you understand what it means to choose peace over pain. This story isn't just about betrayal. It's about boundaries, growth, and self-respect. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? See you soon in the next story.